Hello everyone! Today we are going to talk about the Roaring Twenties. The 1920s, also known as the Roaring Twenties, were marked by many significant events. It was defined by people's love for the radio, dancing marathons, the flapper dress and much more. Apart from many changes in the society, be it in terms of economy or fashion, there were many people who made a mark during this eventful decade. Famous people in the 1920s were the shining stars of a changing world of celebrity. With the rapid social change and the rise of popular fashion and culture, the fabric of the United States became more diverse and interesting. But do you know who are the people blazing the trail during this magnificent time? Let's take a trip down the memory line and learn more about some of the celebrities of this decade who have left their mark on the pages of history.
I was born on 24th of July 1900 in Montgomery, Alabama. I was an American novelist during the 20s and dubbed by my husband, Scott Fitzgerald, the first American flapper. I met Scott at a country club, and at first we were involved in a long-distance relationship. To be honest, I wasn't that impressed with the financial security that he provided. But Scott didn't give up, and we got married. Our marriage hasn't been a fairy tale though. Scott used our relationship as a material in his novels and would also lift notes from my diary, can you believe that? Seeking an artistic identity of my own, I wrote magazine articles and short stories. In the pages of the New York newspapers, we had become icons of youth and success. I admit, Scott and I shared love for the alcohol. I once even jumped into the fountain at Union Square. On October 26, 1921, I gave birth to our daughter, Frances Scotty Fitzgerald. I never became particularly domestic or showed any interest in housekeeping. While Scott was absorbed writing The Great Gatsby, I had an affair with a dashing young French pilot, Edward. I spent afternoons swimming at the beach and evenings dancing at the casinos. After 6 weeks, I asked Scott for divorce. At first, he demanded to confront Edward, but instead locked me in our house until I was forced to abandon the request for divorce. I never saw Edward again. Despite the fight we had, Scott and I kept appearances. Later on, I overdosed on sleeping pills, although we never spoke of that again. Scott and I kept fighting over all kind of stuff. I felt really bored and isolated while he was writing, so I became obsessed with ballet. But Scott didn't approve of me becoming a professional dancer. My behavior became increasingly erratic. I was admitted to a sanatorium in France and was diagnosed as a schizophrenic. While I had been hospitalized, I had a swell of creativity and I wrote my semi-autobiographical novel, Save Me the Waltz. Scott was furious about it. After the sanatorium, I would spend a lot of time drawing because of the endless distress I was always under. Scott and I kept fighting. Finally, things between us became disaster, and before he was hospitalized was the last time I've seen him. I went back to the sanatorium as I never felt better after everything that had happened to me.
Fitzgerald died in the hospital she was checked in when a fire broke out in 1948.
I was born on the 27th of March 1899 in a small house in Chicago, Illinois. Since my father was in the army, we had to move frequently. I had not intended to pursue a career in acting, but one of my aunts took me to a small film company in Chicago for a visit and I was asked to come back to work as an extra. This was where I met actor Wallace Beery. After a few months working with others like Charlie Chaplin and making $13.50 a week, I left school to work full-time at the studio. I married Beery on my 17th birthday. I got pregnant, but not wanting me to have the child, he tricked me into drinking a mixture that would abort the baby. And although we continued working together, we separated and finally divorced 2 years later. In 1919, I joined Cecil B. DeMille's team and soon rose to major stardom. I was turned into a romantic lead starring in Don't Change Your Husband, Why Change Your Wife, and The Affairs of Anatole. I married Herbert Sunborn in 1919, with whom I had a daughter, Gloria. Our divorce a few years later caused scandal, as Sunborn accused me of being unfaithful with 13 different men. I wanted another child during this time and adopted my son Joseph in 1923. By the mid-1920s, now specializing in drama, I was a reigning queen of Hollywood and one of the best paid actresses there by this time. In 1925, I wed French aristocrat. However, he wasn't wealthy. We divorced in 1931. During this marriage, I was involved in an affair with the married Joseph P. Kennedy, the father of future President John F. Kennedy. Audiences gravitated to my movies as much for my fashion as for my acting. I was known for wearing beads, jewels, and peacock and ostrich feathers. In 1927, I decided to turn down $1 million a year contract with Paramount to join the newly created United Artists, where I was my own boss and could make the movies I wanted, with whom I wanted and when. Unfortunately, a year later I was nearly bankrupted by the cost of the production of Queen Kelly. In 1929 I transitioned to talkies with The Trespasser. I received my first Best Actress Oscar for this role. Personal problems and changing tastes caused my popularity to wane during the 1930s, when I moved into theatre and television.
On the 4th of April 1983, Swanson died in New York hospital from a heart ailment, aged 84.
So, have you heard of me? Whoa, what? What did you say? Oh, people, I'm the most notorious gangster in the history of the nation. Alphonse Capone, better known to most as Al Capone or Scarface. Around Chicago with blood and guns. Want to know more about me? I was born in Brooklyn in 1899 to two Italian immigrants. Even from an early age, I did not respond well to authority. I beat a female teacher of mine while in the 6th grade and left school at the age of 14. That's how it all started. When I killed a man in an argument, rather than face the charges, I called my old friend Torrio, who was then in Chicago. I moved to Chicago on the invitation of Torrio. I carried my rough style of dealing with people to Chicago. As the bartender at Torrio's club, I broke the bones, arms, legs, and even the skulls of those who evicted from the establishment. Believe it or not, I was also known for my generosity. I would frequently tip a waiter $100, had standing orders in Cicero to hand out coal and clothes to the needy during the cold winters, and opened some of the first soup kitchens during the Great Depression. As much as the average citizen considered me to be a generous benefactor and local celebrity, I just could not help the darkness in me come out. I was a cold-blooded killer. I murdered dozens of people and ordered the killing of hundreds of others. One such example of me handling things occurred in the spring of 1929. I had learned that 3 of my associates planned to betray me, so I decided to invite all 3 to a huge party. After the 3 unsuspecting men had eaten heartily and drunk their fill, my bodyguards quickly tied them up to their chairs. I then picked a baseball bat and began hitting them, breaking bone by bone. After I was done with them, I got away with them, like bang, bang, bang. I also became head of the Chicago Mafia after Torrio was seriously wounded in an assassination attempt. Throughout my reign, I ran the streets of Chicago with my mob. I had over half of the Chicago police after me. In 1929, I made my biggest blunder by ordering the shooting of Bugs Boran, part of another Chicago underground faction. On the 14th of February, in what is known as St. Valentine's Day's Massacre. My men killed a group of 7 people. I got caught by the police, unfortunately. Those pigs.
Al Capone retired to his estate in Florida and died of heart failure in 1947. The 1920s are important because they really focused the concept and possibility of becoming a self-made man or woman. The 20s distilled the American dream and reinforced that anything is possible. While ones had the passion and drive to fulfill their vision of a successful future, others achieved fame not so fairly and legally. Thank you so much for being with us. И май гледам към това.
Няма значение какво бъдеш.
Yeah.